What's up, everybody, and welcome back. And I know what you're thinking. Another pretentious mage showing off his ZF gold farming, but this one's different. In this one, I'm actually just going to walk you through how I boost people for gold through ZF. What I do is I charge people 4 gold per run, and sometimes I go a little cheaper depending on if it's a regular or not. But I just charge people and run them to the zombies and kill all the zombies at the graveyard, and then we loop back and do scarabs. So I wanted to show people a good way to do it and how to provide a really good service. And there's also some things that you have to do depending on the level of your carries. So for example, in my group right now, I've actually got a couple level 42s. And I think they were starting at level 41, so that's why I pulled that pack in the beginning there. But first, let's go into my gear. This is just going to be a quick overview of my gear. I'm not going to talk about this too much. You can just pause it if you want to look at everything. But I have pretty damn good gear for this. You don't need this good a gear, but if you're selling boosts, I would recommend waiting to do so until you have some pretty nice gear. Just because you want to provide a quick and easy service for people so they keep coming back, and you don't want to ruin your reputation as a bad booster. So make sure you've got some decent gear. You don't need to have as good a gear as I do. So we kill the first 3 guys, and from here we're going to mount up, and then I'm going to escort everybody to the graveyard, and I'll show you some things that you're gonna expect and have to deal with on the way if you have lower levels in the group. Okay, so I paused here because I wanted to show that if you have level 45s or higher, you don't actually have to pull this pack. But like I said, in my group, I currently have level 42s, so I'm going to want to pull that. So when you're making your way to the graveyard, a big thing to remember here is you don't want to just run ahead of everybody like I did in this video. I wanted to show an example of what not to do, because what you need to remember is there's a threat decay on anything aggroed onto you. I believe it's after about 10 seconds. So as you can see now, I let them catch up before I started pulling anything because I want them to stay close enough, but I also don't want them to aggro anything after the threat decay, because now you risk having them getting dazed and dismounted. So make sure they're within eye shot or about 20 yards, and then once you clear that corner, it's pretty much downhill from there. You're going to get there easily and start killing zombies. So and if you run through mobs and you don't stop to give them a second to aggro onto you, you risk leaving some behind. So like you saw with that troll right there, I actually had to stand on top of it for about a second to get it to aggro onto me. Okay, so you got everybody up there safe and sound, and they jump up into that corner, and that's where they're going to just sit and chill. They don't have to move from there. That's the spot you want them to be in, because we're going to do this all in one pull, and that's the farthest away they can be for this. So definitely use that spot, and then the pot that you see me sitting drinking on, that's where you're going to use to reset for all the pulls, which we'll get into in a minute. My strategy involves not activating the boss. I know most people activate the boss because they want the zombies to run to the boss instead of aggroing onto them, but I actually find that this is a faster way to do it, and it just makes the one pull method and boosting service really clean and efficient for people. So what you see me doing there is I click on as many graves as I can, and as soon as, well, not as many as I can, I'm clicking all of the graves, and as soon as my ice barrier breaks, I'm hitting Frost Nova, and then I continue clicking graves, run over to the pot, reset, drink, rinse, repeat. So good things to practice here are, before you start clicking on any of the graves, make sure your ice barrier is 1, it's up, and 2, it's off of cooldown. And you also want Blink and Frost Nova off cooldown before you start any zombie pulling, because what you see me doing is opening graves, sometimes refreshing ice barrier, and then blinking away after I've clicked all of them open. So here's the next round. Ice Barrier breaks, Frost Nova. Okay, and then from here I just blink, get on the pot, rinse, repeat. If you're going to do it in one pull like this, you do need to make sure you're doing this pretty quickly, because I think you have about 2 minutes before all of the graves despawn after opening them. So get there as quick as possible to start drinking and get your ice barrier up. If you've got really good gear like me and you don't use most of your HP pool opening graves, I know this third round of graves, sometimes I don't need a full health pool, so I can get out there and click them open and start doing it faster. Here I sat and drank to full, which probably was a mistake. But yeah, you do need to make sure you're doing... Oh, I failed to click this twice here. You do need to make sure you're doing this fairly quickly, because you never know when something good is going to spawn out of those graves, and it's cloth, it's extra gold. Maximize your gold per hour while doing this. Don't miss out on any graves. Alright, so you've successfully opened all the graves, and you're ready to gather them up and kill them. So, surprise, this is the part where I tell you need an epic mount for this. So, if you don't have an epic mount, you can do your own boosting method, but this is the way that I'm doing it. This is the fastest way. And rule of thumb while you're pulling all of these zombies, like you see me doing here, is try to get as many of them pulled with each other as possible. Try not to body pull them, because on this part you could end up losing a ton of HP. I'm already at half health here. So the goal is to avoid the initial melee swings that they do when aggroing to you. Just let the other zombies that you've already pulled aggro them to you. And I only do 2 loops around like you saw, and run in front of them and start my rotation. So here's the spec that I'm using. I'll keep this on screen for a little bit. This is honestly the best AoE farming spec that I've been able to use. It's not the Blizzard slow spec. It's way faster. It's way more efficient in my opinion, and I don't think you actually need that good a gear to use this spec. I think you could use it at a pretty low gear level. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the most important talent choices here are Ignite, Improve Flame Strike, Burning Soul. The reason that's so important is because you're going to see a lot of resisted Frost Novas, and they're going to be beaten on you while you're trying to get that first Flame Strike Shatter off. So a lot of the times you'll resist that knockback and get that Shatter off. And then Master of Elements, Shatter, Ice Shards, the standard AoE farming Frost talents like Frost Channeling and Arctic Reach, Permafrost. Those are the most important ones in this build, so if you've got a variation of this build that you want to play, do what makes you happy, play that, but take the most important talents for sure. So immediately after that, I'm not going to loot any of the zombies. I'm actually going to run over to the graves and start looting them. Now, why did I evocate there? Well, if you're like me, you're not perfect. You're probably going to go through quite a bit of these runs and miss some graves. And if you did it right, you're going to be at the end of killing that big pack of zombies. So if you missed a grave and a zombie spawns out to start kicking your ass, you're going to need some mana for that. So these runs take about 11 to 15 minutes depending on how bad your group did getting to the reset spot. So your evocate's going to be up for pretty much every run. And you do this in one pull. It's not like you need to open a row of graves or a column of graves, evocate, and start over. So your big cooldowns you're only going to use one time. One thing I forgot to bring up is the patrol. If the patrol from the pyramid event side is either on its way to the zombie room or already in it, just kill that, because there's nothing more embarrassing than that patrol messing up your whole lasso of zombies. So kill that before you start if you can. If it's not there and it's not in sight on its way to the zombie room, you're safe to go. But if it makes its way to the zombie room by the end of clicking graves or throughout clicking graves, I would either kill it in a safe spot or wait for it to patrol back, because doing that might kill enough time to lose grave loot. So just be careful about that patrol in particular. So here we are at the final part. I throw in the scarabs just because it's mostly for me. It's a good chance at loot. I've heard that they have a chance to drop Edgemasters handguards. Don't know how true that is, because I think I've ran ZF about 1,000 times. And I've seen an Ice Mill Jerkin twice and one Underworld Band, but I've never seen any Edgemaster's Handguards. So, but if the opportunity's there and it's a little bit of extra XP for your group, and it delays the timer. You don't want to hit that 1 hour lockout. So you definitely want to throw in the Scarabs. So here's how I do it. This is just a quick clip of how I do it. I don't always throw in the boss. Sometimes I just avoid it altogether. You don't have to pull it. Or you could if you want. Doesn't really matter. This is the easiest part of the whole dungeon. So things just to recap on this grind. Number one is just be patient, because there's going to be multiple times where you get these new carries who've never done this before. So patiently and politely type all your instructions. Explain to them that they can't loot anything. All the loot is reserved for you. You're charging for the XP and the service. They're not eligible for any loot. And show them where the reset spot is. Sometimes you're going to get runs where you die or your group dies the first time because, like I said, this is their first time doing it. So be patient and kindly explain it to them. Realize that the lower levels are going to take a little more finesse when escorting to the reset spot. Be a little more careful with them. Anybody level 45 or higher asking for boosts is going to be much easier. Rule number one is just be patient. And if you do that, and you do this well, and you follow the things that you see me do in this video, you're going to have a pretty nice gold per hour on your hands. And I'll show you what I did in a little bit. We're going to go to the vendor and see exactly how much I got after, I think it was 4 runs. So I think I ended up yielding about 80 gold per hour without looting anything really nice. Okay, so my bag's filled up after... this was 4 runs. This is how full my bags get. I'm thinking about getting bigger ones just so I can hold more before I have to go vendor and reset. So here is... I did 8 runs for these carries. They stuck around for 8 runs. So this isn't how much I'm getting per hour. I would cut that in half per person. It's about 16 gold per person, and I had 3 carries there. So that was what I made for 4 runs, and the vendor was about almost 12 gold. Plus, I vendor the silk cloth and the crappy greens that I don't think are going to sell on the auction house. And then the last thing that I do is I COD all of my mage weave. I have somebody who buys that every single time infinitely. He just buys all the mage weave cloth that I send him for 75 silver a stack. So I think the average is 9 stacks per run, which is around 6 gold, 75 silver, I think. And of course, the big ticket item I got on that last run was the Underworld Band. So if we add all that up, we get 48 gold from the 3 carries, and obviously you could do 4 carries and increase that number. 20 gold from vendoring, 6 gold, 75 silver from CODing the Mage Weave, and then I loot about 5 gold just in raw silver from killing all the zombies, and then any auction greens. So that totals out to about 80 gold in 4 runs, which you could easily do in an hour. I don't include the auction greens or the auction items in my average because this varies too much. Like you just saw, one of my runs yielded an Underworld Band, which I believe on Fairbanks right now is 200 to 250 gold. So if you add that into the total, 200 plus the 80 gold that I already got flat for all the other items is 280 or more gold in just 1 hour. So average 80 gold per hour is what I would call this farm. So that's it. Closing thoughts. The best time to do this during the week is between 5 and 8 p.m. That's when you get a lot of people who are either off school or work and they want to buy some boosts. And then also set a stopwatch so you don't lock anybody out. I was fortunate enough to have a stopwatch being ran for me already, so I didn't have to think about that. But definitely run a stopwatch. It is kind of a lot to track and monitor during these things, so stay alert, be patient, and have fun getting rich. So that's it for me, guys. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.